I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. This is A World Gone Mad. Let's not waste any time. Here we go. You know, the more I get ready to record each one of my podcast episodes, the more I realize what incredible bullshit is being put out there in the universe. And it's usually coming from either Trump or his MAGA supporters. All right, I'm starting this episode this way because apparently a press dinner is now a potential assassination venue. A suspect's been charged with attempting to assassinate the president at a press dinner. A press dinner. That's the event where politicians and journalists get dressed up, pretend they don't hate each other, and laugh at jokes that'd get you fired anywhere else. And now we're adding attempted assassination to the itinerary. So here's what they're telling us happened. A guy gets into this dinner, gets close enough to the president to trigger federal charges, and law enforcement steps in before it turns into something else, and something worse. That's the official version. And on paper, great, the system worked, fantastic, round of applause, everyone go home. Except, how does someone get that close to the president? This isn't a backyard barbecue. This is a controlled room with security layered on top of security. You've got media, officials, credentials, checkpoints, you know, the whole deal. And somehow we still end up with a guy close enough to be charged with attempting to kill the president. That's not a small detail. That's the entire story. And now comes the part you can already predict. Half the country is going to look at this and say, see, everything's completely out of control. The other half's going to say, wait a second, how exactly did this unfold? What aren't we being told? Let's see the timeline. Let's see the details. And within about 5 minutes, this turns from a serious security failure into a full-blown political food fight where nobody trusts anything and everyone's yelling at everyone else. And yes, let me say the quiet part out loud, because people are already whispering it. Was this real? Or was this staged? That question's already out there, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. And that's the part that's actually insane. Not just what happened, but how fast it turns into pick your version of reality. Because now, it isn't just an event, it's a narrative. Was it a lone guy? Was it bigger? Is the story exactly what it looks like? Or is this going to get dissected into 1,000 competing theories over the next 2 weeks? Meanwhile, the one thing that should be obvious gets buried. Someone got close enough in a high security environment, supposedly, to be charged with attempting to assassinate the president. That should be setting off alarms everywhere. Instead, it's just another headline people scroll past like it's a weather update. And honestly, that might be, the most disturbing part of this whole thing. Not that it happened, but that it barely even slows anyone down anymore. All right, here we go again. Same story, different week. Republicans on the Hill are bracing for what they're calling a nightmare week over a funding standoff tied to the Department of Homeland Security. And if you're sitting there thinking, wait, didn't we just do this? Yes, you're not crazy, we did. And now we're doing it again. Here's the situation. Funding for DHS is caught in a political standoff, and instead of this being, handled like a basic function of government, it's turned into another high-stakes game of chicken. Lawmakers are digging in, pressure's building, and the word coming out of Washington is nightmare, which is a great sign. Anytime the people running the government start using words like that, everything's under control. So what's actually at risk here? DHS isn't some small agency nobody's heard of. This is border security, immigration enforcement, disaster response, counter terrorism. You know, the stuff you'd think everyone would agree probably shouldn't be hanging by a thread while politicians argue with each other. But that's exactly what's happening. One side's pushing for specific policy demands tied to the funding, specifically about the rules for ICE. The other side's pushing back, and instead of resolving it, we get this slow motion standoff where everyone's waiting to see who blinks first. And here's the part that should drive people nuts. This isn't new. This isn't some unexpected crisis that just popped up out of nowhere. This is the same cycle we've watched over and over again. Deadlines get close, rhetoric ramps up, everyone goes on TV acting like the sky is about to fall. And then at the last possible second, something either gets patched together or everything spills over into chaos. Meanwhile, the people actually affected by this aren't the ones arguing on Capitol Hill. It's workers, agencies, and the public who end up dealing with the consequences while this plays out like a political reality show. So yes, Nightmare Week. That's what they're calling it. But for most people watching this, it doesn't even feel like a nightmare anymore. It just feels normal. And that might be the biggest problem of all. Because when dysfunction starts to feel routine, nobody in charge feels any real pressure to fix it. And here we are again, watching the same script play out, hoping somehow the ending's going to be different this time. They'll resolve it before the deadline, just to kick it down the road a few more months. All right, let me talk about the political version of musical chairs, except the chairs are congressional seats, and somehow the game's always rigged before the music even starts. Governor Ron Santos is proposing a new House map in Florida, and the goal is not subtle: flip 4 seats for Republicans. Not hide it, not dress it up, just right out in the open. This is about power. Flip 4 seats, period. And here's the part that should drive you insane. Everyone acts shocked when this happens, like, oh wow, politicians are redrawing maps to help themselves win elections. Seriously? That's the shock? That's the headline? Because let's be honest, both sides do this. Republicans do it, Democrats do it. Whoever's in power grabs a pen, redraws the lines on a map, and suddenly voters aren't choosing politicians. Politicians are choosing their voters. It's a magic trick. Watch closely. Your district just moved 3 blocks to the left, and somehow your vote matters less now. And now it turns into this back and forth where if Republicans pull this off in Florida, Democrats are already looking at their own states thinking, fine, then we're going to redraw ours to counter it. And they'll tell you it's about fairness or representation or communities or whatever word sounds nice that day. It's not. It's about locking in seats before a single vote is cast. That's the game. And we're all just supposed to sit here and pretend this is normal. Like, this is how a functioning system works. Sure, just redraw the map until you like the outcome. What could possibly go wrong? Meanwhile, people are arguing with each other about candidates and policies, and the boundaries themselves are being shifted underneath them. You're debating the players while they're moving the field. So yes, new map, 4 seats, big political win if it goes through, and the other side will fight it, and maybe they'll win, maybe they won't, and then next time the power flips, they'll do the exact same thing. Because this isn't about voters. It's about control. And we are the pieces getting moved around the board. Okay, so now we've reached the part of the timeline this week where the president is demanding that a network fire a late-night host over a joke. Again. Not policy, not national security, not anything remotely serious. A joke. Donald Trump is calling on ABC to fire Jimmy Kimmel again after Kimmel made a crack about Melania being an expectant widow. And yes, it's a dark joke. It's supposed to be. That's literally the job. Late night hosts don't do bedtime stories. They throw punches, and then everyone pretends to be shocked when someone gets hit by one of those punches. But here's what's amazing about this. The same guy who built an entire political identity on insults, nicknames, and saying whatever comes to mind at full volume is now drawing a line. Trump. Now we're talking about standards, not now it's, how dare you say something inappropriate? Seriously? This is like a guy who spent years setting the house on fire, suddenly calling the fire department because someone lit a candle. And of course, the response isn't just, hey, that was a bad joke. It's, fire him, shut it down, make it go away. Because that's where we are now. Everything is maximum reaction. Nothing is, maybe we ignore it and move on. And look, you could say the joke went too far. Fine. People can argue that. That's a normal reaction. But calling for someone to lose their job over it while pretending you've never crossed a line yourself is next level selective outrage. This isn't about the joke. It's about control, attention, and turning even late night comedy into another political battleground. Because apparently, Wolfpack, nothing gets to just be a joke anymore. And finally, the Justice Department is floating firing squads as a federal execution option. Yes, that sentence is real. No, this isn't a history podcast. We've apparently run out of ideas so hard we're rummaging through the 1800s like it's a clearance bin. Lethal injection having issues? Great, let's go with the thing we retired generations ago. That's not policy. That's a reboot nobody asked for. And watch how it's sold. Efficiency, reliability, clean technical words like we're choosing a printer setting, draft, high quality, or whatever this is. It's surreal. You dress it up in bureaucratic language, and suddenly it's not a giant step backward. It's a procedure. Meanwhile, you can already hear the machinery start up. Someone will call it necessary, firing squads. Someone else will call it barbaric. And suddenly we're all supposed to act like this is a normal menu of options. It's not. The fact that this is even on the table, firing squads, in 2026 should set off alarms. Because this isn't just about one method. It's about what it says. When the conversation moves from fixing a broken system to reviving the most extreme version we can find, that's not progress. That's panic wearing a suit. And here's the punchline, Wolfpack. We keep calling this modern justice while shopping for answers in the past. That's not modern. That's us running in reverse and pretending it's forward motion. At some point, you've got to ask, are we actually solving anything? Or are we just getting more comfortable with how far we're willing to go? Brum, 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 bum, bum. Ready, aim, fire. This firing squad idea has to be shot down. I would appreciate your comments on any of this today or anything from previous episodes. The email is wolfpacktalks@gmail.com. And I'm still receiving email from new listeners, so I thank you for that. But all of my original podcast listeners in the last 2 years have vanished as far as emails go. Hopefully all of you are okay. I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. This is A World Gone Mad. I'll be back Wednesday. Until then, I urge you, the Wolfpack, remain skeptical, Question everything. Please, don't lose hope. And most of all, stay alert.